Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this March 12, 2018 day on our calendar. How the days go by so quickly. And today I wanted to talk specifically regarding Jesuit treachery. And what I mean by that is, over the years, over the hundreds of years, this organization was formed in the 1540s to counter the Protestant Reformation, has been involved in political intrigue, and has hidden their satanic agenda quite well. Now, over the centuries, over 6,000 books have been written about this intrigue with the Jesuits and their hidden satanic agenda. But many of these books are missing or taken out of circulation to protect who? Of course, the guilty. Now, one wonders, how come so few people understand this story when so many books have been written? And the question is, how do people understand it today? I think over the years, fewer and fewer people will get a chance to even see what history reflected regarding this organization. Now, Voltaire, remember the French elite Voltaire, who wrote many books, estimated there were about 6,000 books written back then, so the number must be at least 6,001 right now. The question I always ask is, how many of these books are still in circulation? And what they were writing about was the Jesuit deviousness and involvement in worldwide political intrigue and assassinations. Before we get into that, let me tell you how hard of a subject this is. Even when you find the few people in the country who understand this and have written about it, then you have to sort out what side are those people on. Because many have even made the claim that Voltaire, who was an outspoken critic of the Jesuits, was actually working for them. Now, you say, why would someone criticize an organization if they actually believe in that organization? Well, it's very simple. They want to control the narrative. So the question becomes, is there anybody around today doing that? And of course, I have my ideas, because I made it a point over the years to search out as many people in this country who understand and have written about Jesuit intrigue. Now, what I found out is that there's very few authors involved in this. It's very hard to find a publisher. And when one does find a publisher, it's basically hard to get the book into circulation and market that so you can get a lot of readers. However, what I have found out is that most of the people, and I'm just talking about the average Joe that picks up the internet or picks up a book and starts reading about this subject, it gets captivated by it. And the reason people do is because it's a subject that many people have never thought about, and when they open their eyes to it, they can't get enough of it because they want to get more and more and see what have we been deceived about over the years. And especially when we start talking about all these average Joes over the years that I met, and I'm talking about thousands who have listened to my show and others around the country. A group specifically that's more interested than most are former Catholics. People who were born into the Catholic faith and went through all the rigmarole from the time you were a kid. What I'm talking about is your first Holy Communion, confession, confirmation, all learning about all the sacraments, going to Mass every Sunday. And I find that these people, this segment of the population is quite interested in it. And I find a lot of people who really have come to the forefront to talk about the truth behind the Jesuit and Vatican order are in fact former Catholics who have been deceived by them for many years. And that is a difficult thing. And I personally went through the same process. However, I think I had I'll call it luck or just being in the right place at the right time. But by living near the Vatican and working with that, or, well, not with them, but covering them as a journalist, and watching their intrigue from Rome for at least 6 years, I think I had a first-hand view of it, so the things that I started reading about, to me, made a lot more sense, because I could actually say, I saw it, I heard it, I knew what was going on when I lived there, and when you put the pieces together and all the context that I made, I come to no other conclusion that this story is probably the one that intrigues me the most over the years as a journalist. And that's why I think other people fall in line. But the real problem is people don't get a chance to see it because the books have been hidden. The books, and I swear, as the years move on, the more technologically dependent we become, the less we're going to see, because these people actually do control much of our educational process. They control Hollywood, and they control our political system. So it's a difficult thing for a person to really get to the truth and actually say, what have I been deceived about? I want to know. So let's talk about, for a minute, the problems you can have. For example, let's say that myself, as a person who wants to go out and talk to educated people about this subject, who have written about it, who understand it, and then I have to make the differentiation. Are they working for the Jesuits or are they not? And that's a tough one, because just as they put Voltaire in position to do that, they've done it over the years and they're doing it today. So I kind of look at things from taking an example of one part of history and then bringing that story to light and seeing what other people think about it. So let's talk about this. One of the biggest things the Jesuits have been accused of over the centuries, and this is public record, they've been kicked out of over, 80 countries ever since their formation in the 1540s. Now let's talk about Europe and the time prior to the American Revolution when the Vatican split with the Jesuit order. Now this is public record, okay? And let's take that public record that most people don't even understand, but let's talk about it. So the Vatican splits with the Jesuit order in Europe because of the fact that they were meddling in governments and all the European countries and causing the Vatican serious problems. This is the public story. Serious problems. At the time, the Jesuit general, when the you-know-what was hitting the fan, was a guy by the name of Lorenzo Ricci. Now, he's a key figure. If you want to figure out, the behind-the-scenes story of even what most people who criticize the Jesuits lay claim to in this part of history. So, as I said, the Vatican is now watching the Jesuit order run roughshod over countries, kings and political organizations in countries all over Europe were saying, we got to get rid of these guys. I mean, they're using the poison pill. They're assassinating people. They're trying to take over governments. They're working as spies. And how deep does this go? We must disband them. So the Vatican publicly agrees to disband and disassociate from the Jesuit order during this time in history in the 1700s. Now, the question I always asked was, why would they do that? Well, an easy answer is, the Vatican was interested in finances, and the Jesuits were starting to hurt their pocketbooks, so they got rid of them for a while. But the question then must be asked, if they were disbanded in the I don't have the approximate date, 60s or 1760s, let's just say that. I might be off by a few years. And then they were reinstituted in the 1820s, again by the Vatican. That doesn't make sense, does it really? And what happened in between that time period? And really, I always ask myself, why? The Vatican and the Jesuits need the Vatican need the Jesuits. And the reason is a simple fact that if you've ever been involved with police officers, you always have a good cop and a bad cop. Okay? And so let's look at it that way. The white purity of Rome against the blackness, hidden intrigue of the Jesuit order. And in fact, when you look at the leaders, the black pope is considered the Jesuit general, and the white pope is considered the Holy Father, the vicar of Christ on earth. That's how it's portrayed. But ask yourself, was the time that the Vatican disbanded the Jesuits, was there something more going on? Did they have a hand in it? Did they do it for a specific reason? And I say this is a turning point where a lot of people who research the Jesuits, you can find out their true colors. And what I mean by that is, what are they really hiding? And where do they want to take the narrative? Now, if you take that narrative, what's going to be the outcome? The Vatican looks like they're good guys, right? But we know that there's nothing good ever about that organization at the top level. There is no good and bad in the top level of the Vatican. They're all Satanists. And that is basically the premise that you have to think about. Okay, so what could have happened? Well, Lorenzo Ricci could have orchestrated this along with the help of the Vatican in order to go undercover with the Jesuit order so that their enemies would think they have won. Now, it's interesting when you look at Sun Tzu's Art of War. One of the greatest strategies that this book portrays, and it's interesting that the first time it was printed in a Western language, French was first, was by the Jesuits in France, and then of course it was translated into English. Now, the question is, the key part of Sun Tzu is, let your enemies think you're weak so that you can defeat your enemy. If your enemy has dropped its guard, if your enemy thinks you're even disbanded or dead, they're going to say, well, we don't have to worry about them. Now, could they have done that? Of course they could have. Lorenzo Ricci, and a key way to think about this, there's one court case, and this took place in Portugal, okay, that tells me that this part of history is even not presented properly by some of these great writers existing today in America who think they're giving you think you're getting the truth about the Jesuits and the Vatican, but you're not. This story, this court case proves that if they do not look at this seriously, they're not giving you the straight and narrow. Here's what I mean. In Portugal, there was a high-level Jesuit priest who was put on trial for embezzling. Okay, this was back in the 1700s. And he was put on trial, and guess who came to his supposed rescue? Lorenzo Ricci. But did he come to the rescue? Court records back then even showed in Portugal. Now, here we have a trial of a Jesuit who's been involved in intrigue in Portugal, embezzling a lot of money from the government, trying to swing the Portugal government to do certain things it didn't want to do. So they come down and they try this guy for treason, the rest of that, money, whatever he was doing. And Lorenzo Ricci comes to the trial. He didn't have to. And you think he would come armed with something that would exonerate one of his own. But it was just the opposite. He gave the Portugal court everything it ever needed to prove the deviousness, the treachery, the assassinations that were going on by the Jesuits, handed to him by Lorenzo Ricci. Now ask yourself, why would a Jesuit general turn over secret information that would damn his group, unless he wanted them to be disbanded and kicked out of Portugal and kicked out of the rest of countries in Europe, so that the Vatican could then take that case and say, look at what happened to the Jesuits. We have to get rid of them. But what happens to Lorenzo Ricci? He gets tried in Rome, right? And then supposedly sent to Castel Sant'Angelo, which is a prison right near the Vatican, where he died in prison. But did he die in prison? Now remember, the Jesuits, along with him, were the first to interpret Sun Tzu's Art of War, some even saying they wrote it, because it's pretty hard to trace who even Sun Tzu is back in China. So, if he understands that the best thing to do is make your enemy think you're weak, then if he's working with the Vatican, they could have put him in prison, said he was dead, buried somebody else, which they've done many times. And guess where Lorenzo Ricci shows up? Lorenzo Ricci shows up in America. Right before, guess what? We sign our Constitution and America becomes a country. And if you start looking into the background of this man, he was very much involved in the orchestration and also the strategy behind the American Revolutionary War, just like he was in France. So what does he do? If you follow me here, he uses Sun Tzu's Art of War, the strategy being make your enemy think you're weak. Now, America was a prized possession, always has been what they want in, a long term, and then you see what's happening today. So he then goes over to America, works with Franklin, works with our founding fathers to make sure that the Constitution includes freedom of religion for anyone. Now, who was persona non grata in America during this time? The Vatican and Catholics. They couldn't hold office. They didn't want them in America because of what they were doing in Europe. But with this new Constitution, guess who gets a foot in the door? The Vatican. Now, are there any sightings of Lorenzo Ricci? He didn't come over here, telling everybody who he is. He's supposedly dead. But there was a guy they called a professor, and there were several witnesses, and there was 2 books written about what the witnesses said about this man, and he fit the description of Lorenzo Ricci to a T. So, is that part of history important? Of course it is. Because what happens after the United States gets moving in the 1820s, what does the Vatican do? It reinstitutes the Jesuit order. All of a sudden, after 50, 40 years of saying, we don't want to talk to this organization should be banished from the earth for good, they reinvent them. And guess where their strongest position in the world is today? Right here in America. Now that to me is too much of a coincidence to not look at this story and say that could be what really happened during that period of time when the Jesuits were supposedly disbanded. And I think the key evidence needed to look at is that court case in Portugal. Because it makes no sense for Lorenzo Ricci, the head of the Jesuit order, to give the Portugal court everything it needed to prove their case. In fact, he should have done just the opposite, from my thinking. So we have, I use that as kind of a litmus test. So you know that myself and a guy by the name of Eric Phelps have differed, and that's one of the main reasons we do. And I think a guy that's written so much about them, came out with a book called Vatican Assassins, etc., should be willing to speak about this without coming back saying impossible, could not happen. And in fact, one of the purveyors of this story about Lorenzo Ricci was a guy by the name of Tupper Saucy, who wrote a book called The Rulers of Evil. And I was fortunate enough to interview him several times before he died in 2009. And what he told me over the phone was quite enlightening. He said, Greg, there's so much more information that we need to find out about this. But I've laid out a number of things that lead me to believe that Ricci never did die in that prison in Rome. And he was actually the professor that worked with the founding fathers to make sure that everything fell into place during the formation of America. So when I make the statement, the Jesuit order should be considered some of our founding fathers. I'm not kidding. All right. What happens with Phelps? He criticized, as soon as Tupper Saucy's book comes out, he calls him a Jesuit coadjutor, which means he accuses Tupper Saucy of being a coadjutor. And Tupper never came back and accused Eric of that, and even said this in emails, that this is kind of like a kangaroo court you're holding here. Who are you? And that's not the actions of a historian as Phelps presents himself. So when I started talking about after Tupper died, and may I say that I became friends with Eric Phelps, and he'd appeared on my show more than any other radio show over the years. In fact, I was instrumental in getting him a show on First Amendment Radio. Now he's since left, not under good terms, I hear, and he's now got his own station somewhere, and he's doing the same thing. But my question has always become, what side is he really on? And that's not a bad question. You can ask that to me. Go ahead. What side am I on? I'll tell you what, I'm not on the side of the Vatican, that's for sure. And I think over the years, what I've done on my show proves that. But here's the point. If he would not consider this part of history, something tells me something's up in Denmark. Something smells in Denmark. And that's a clue. And so you can look for others. There's others that, I find quite interesting with him. And it leads me to believe, is he just like Voltaire? One of the other things that's interesting, he wrote that book, Vatican Assassins, that many people, millions of people over the internet talk about. But when you try to find the publisher of that book, you can't find it. That's weird. And that should be talked about too. Now, also I always wondered, where did he give his first interview? That was in 2001, and it came out in in the old Spotlight, which became the American Free Press. Now, I wrote articles for the American Free Press and found out they were basically a CIA operative newspaper working for the Jesuits as well, if you go down the chain of command. And so why would they give him the first interview? And you have to ask the question, is he connected? There's nothing wrong with that. He can come out in defense of himself. And that's all I ever wanted. If he ever came out, and after that, he didn't want to come on, talk to me much anymore. But the point is, you're going to get a lot of people that talk about his work, and there's so much in his books that, sure, there's a lot of good information. I can't deny that. But it's also the MO of people that work for the wrong side to lead you down the wrong path at certain critical issues that they don't want anybody to know about. And that's all I'm talking about. So you figure it out. And we're going to come back. I got another half hour. People are asking me, where have you been for the week? Well, I've been busy. How's that? And I'm back on the air, so don't worry about it. And we do have a few sponsors. The one I want to talk about right now is a company, and it's only for you people out there with business minds. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of small businessmen, a lot of people who need what to get started or to keep going. Money. You can't live without it, right? And who has the hardest time getting money? I find it's small and medium-sized businesses. Many times banks, and the way the banks operate today is a travesty. They give people, big corporation, if the head of Amazon comes in and wants $1 trillion loan, he's going to get it. Does he need it? You know who really needs it is the mom and pop shop who wants to keep going and fight against people like Walmart, other things like that, but they go to a bank and they're cut off. The reason they're cut off is banks are not lending to small and medium-sized businesses. So if you've been turned down and you need money, and I mean quick money, you can get it within 5-7 days if you have certain things, 3 months of your bank statements, 3 months credit cards, you've been in business for 6 months, you need money, no questions asked, anywhere from $2,500 to $1 million. And you can call me or email me at gregbeacon@gmail.com, gregbeacon.com. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This ain't happening.
Okay, we're back talking about Jesuit treachery. You're listening to Greg Anthony's investigative journal. This is First Amendment Radio, so stay tuned. We got another half hour. And the question is, why so many books but nobody's reading them? Well, many have been taken out of circulation, but there's always going to be something new about the Jesuits, something to be updated, and you're never going to run out of it because they're involved in the same thing today they were back during the time of Lorenzo Ricci when he went undercover and worked his magic to create the Constitution of the United States in order to get the dirty little hands of the Vatican into this country. And look what they've done since they've come, if you understand the story at all. And they're working in the same way today, behind the scenes. They have many of their front people up doing their work for them, doing their bidding. You can go back a long way with the line of presidents. I like to start with Eisenhower. You can go back to FDR. You can go back even farther. But since then, they're all in the pocket of the Jesuits, and if they don't, they end up like JFK. So you have Donald Trump. No different. And, you have to look behind the scenes to see really what's going on. But, you're hearing the winds of war all over the place now. You're hearing North Korea rattle its saber. Supposedly Trump and Kim Jong-un are getting together for a chat. That should be interesting. I always said the best way to solve the North Korea problem is let those two guys just fight, and the winner takes everything. Yep, if North Korea takes Trump, give him America. And if Trump beats Kim Jong-un in a wrestling match, we take North Korea. That's about as crazy as what they're doing now. It sounds about as crazy as really what they're doing now. I've never heard such hyperbole between two foreign leaders. I can't even tell you. Recently, Trump called the Mexican president crazy, and I think he's done that with most leaders around the world, and it's an orchestrated event to get people upset. And it's basically done to get the Mexican people upset. How can an American president call our leader crazy? Unless the people in Mexico think he's crazy too, and there are some who do. But the point is, basically it's done to upset the people, get people, chaotic, get them ready to fight. And that's really what he's doing all over the place. And the question becomes, when is the fight really going to happen? Is it just a lot of talk, schoolyard talk? Or is it really going to be bombs blowing up cities, things like that? Today in the news, by the way, Putin in Russia, who's also on the Vatican team, said he just fired off an interballistic missile that's 5 times the speed of sound, and no one can stop it. And the American defenses would be defenseless. And what's that all about? Now, also in the news, there was some nerve gas or something released in Great Britain, and they're tracing it to the Russians. And Putin says, of course it isn't us. So here you see this orchestration of war going on. Supposedly Kim Jong-un and Trump are getting together for peace talks. And how could that? There's nothing peaceful about those two. It's not going to be peace talks. It's going to be who can insult the next guy more. Or they could play this game of, okay, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And then both will come out shaking their hands. And then all of a sudden there'll be some other attack going on when we left our guard down. So you just don't know. But one thing you do know, if you follow this story closely here on this show, Kim Jong-un, the President of the United States, the President of Mexico, the President of Russia, Putin, the President of China, and we'll stop there. We can go on with France and Germany and Britain and all the rest, and Belgium and Norway and Sweden. They all work for the same team. They just are playing different roles, fighting against each other, putting those two things together. For example, one side against the other, you rub them together and you get a synthesis called what they really want to happen. There you go. So you have Putin in Russia telling his people one thing, Trump in America telling his people another, and really, both of them, when they get behind in the back rooms, are working together. All right. We've talked enough about that today. And look into those stories about this Putin missile. I'm kind of interested in that. But another thing, I've got to talk about this today, because I just had a big laugh to myself. I was driving in my car, and I heard somebody working, I think it was standing in for Rush Limbaugh, talk about they're going to send somebody to Mars within a couple years. Oh, really? Now, please tell me how you can send somebody to a place that doesn't exist unless it's in a fairy tale story or in Disneyland. Because that's exactly what they're doing to you. And when you want to really understand how far the deceptions go, why don't you just talk about two things? They've created the universe that probably, and I would say 99% can't exist the way they tell us. And secondly, they've even created the shape of the earth which can't exist the way they tell us if you use common sense. So, the next thing people will say is, oh, here he goes again. How can he talk about, in 1/2 hour, such credible things and get people to believe him, and then automatically out of the other side of his mouth, he starts saying that Mars doesn't exist, the universe doesn't exist as we know it, and the earth is flat. This guy is crazy. That's what a lot of people will say. But the point is, one and the other really don't go together. The only way they go together is when you realize how far you've been deceived. Then you will go to that point and you will say, wow, maybe he has a point. Now, the first time I ever covered an alien story, remember, I used to talk a lot about the Jesuits, and then every year I would do at least 1 or 2 stories about aliens. Now, are there extraterrestrials in this world? So I would bring on the most credible people I found. In fact, I met this one guy named Charles Hall. And Charles used to be an Air Force weather balloon man. That's back when they used to put up, I don't know, do they still throw up weather balloons? But he worked at White Sands Base, that's in New Mexico. And he swears that he had encounters with what he called the tall whites, 7 to 8 foot tall white aliens who have put underground bases on White Sands, and they used to come there and they met him and so forth and so on. So I put Charles Hall on, and I have to admit, even if I don't believe in aliens, I enjoyed the whole hour completely. Now, there's 2 ways you could look at Charles Hall. One, he did see these people, or people from another world, or he was told to do that by the, Air Force, by his operatives that work that want to push the alien agenda on people when it doesn't exist. Or 3, Charles Hall was delusional. Okay? That's the only way. There's 3 ways to look at it. Now, the question that I got all the time when I did that is, oh, you're ruining your credibility. You are extremely credible. I said, when have I ever been credible? Who wants to be credible in a world that's full of people you're getting news from non-credible people. You're getting your politics from non-credible people. You're getting your religions from non-credible people. But I have to be credible, right? Why don't you ask them if they're credible first? They have more money, more power, more airwaves than I do. Go ask them. And then work your way down to me. But boy, did I get a lot of static from everybody. Oh, you don't listen to him about the Jesuits. He believes aliens exist. Don't listen to him about the Jesuits because he believes the earth is flat. Don't listen to him because he talks about there's no Mars, that the moon landing didn't occur. Well, to even make matters worse, and so you can say it even more because I don't really care, I am going to play to you a short video regarding Mars. And I followed this guy Jeranism, and that's what he calls himself, over the years with Flat Earth and all these things. And I don't know who he is. He's got a good voice. And you can either make your own mind. Does he work for them? Does he don't work for them? You figure it out. But anyway, let's enjoy ourselves for a few minutes anyway. First, though, got to pay the bills. And we do have another sponsor, and that is a company called, I'm not going to tell you. They sell hemp products. I want you to call me about it, talk to me about it, because I can help you buy them. I can help you see if they can help you in any kind if you're ailing. And I can also get you involved as a sales associate. And it doesn't matter if you have gray hair, if you're old, young, it doesn't matter who you are. If you can sit by a computer and you can talk to people and you can make money while you do it. You got to have money, right? Well, this is money for you, the individual. You can make money doing this if you work hard. And you don't have to spend a dime. The nice thing about this company is it's free. So all you got to do is email me at Greg Beacon, that's GregBeacon, at gmail.com. And I'll give you all the info and I'll help you get involved in it, tell you what I know about hemp, and tell you that I've been taking it, and it's relieved my anxiety a bit. It's made me feel quite good, and it doesn't even have THC in it, so it's not hallucinogenic. And I'll keep reporting to see if it's had some really good effects on certain things ailing me. You know? Maybe it'll stop me from talking about the flat earth. And I know that would make a lot of people happy. So I'll let you know. But anyway, let's listen to Jeranism, and I'll drive more people crazy. And let's see what he has to say about Mars. And did they film Mars? You know, they have now this rover going around Mars, right? They're talking about it. Did they do this in Greenland? He makes a good case about that. We know that they did the moon landing here. We know they trained their astronauts in a small place in Russia, and they never go up. So anyway, here we go.
What's going on, everyone? It's Jeranism. Today, talking about everyone's favorite multi-billion-dollar lie, Curiosity. The car-sized, selfie-snapping Mars rover. Yep, a rover on Mars. Doing science. You know me better than that, right? I mean, what do I say? Believe what you want. Don't trust men. But I will tell you that you should look at everything super close, and this one especially, because something's fishy about that Mars rover, and by fishy I mean someone is stealing from your pockets in front of your face and then laughing about it. So people always ask me, dude, why do you hate science so much? And I absolutely do not hate science, but if any scientist thinks that that rover is actually on Mars, well, let's just say I think he's both a bad judge and a blind observer, and nothing more than another parishioner at St. Lawrence de Krause's Apostolic Parish, where they pray the Evolution Creed, and our Darwin, who art in nonsense, and of course the Almighty Trinity of relativity, the Sun, and the Holy Gravity. Yeah, the virgin birth of the universe and the Big Bang. Of course, the divine, peer-reviewed journal. And we have to remember all the saints. St. Galileo, the patron saint of no evidence. St. Copernicus, of course, the patron saint of ass-backwardness of antithesis. St. Giordano Bruno, patron saint of fire. St. Newtonian, patron saint of make-believe forces. And we can't forget St. Kepler, patron saint of ovals. Then you've got St. Sagan, the patron saint of turtlenecks. And of course the current bishops and all their holy dioceses, including Bishop Dawkins, Bishop Cox, and Bishop Neal. Wait, it's Bishop Neal before Cox. It's so spherical. Anyway, I got carried away there. I was saying, I love science. I mean, it's so much better than religion. Ugh. Believing in books and concepts without evidence, dogmas and infallible foundations. It just feels so much better to be always right. Be a fan of science. I'm actually debating a guy a little bit later tonight on the age of the Earth. I've been practicing. Let's see how I do. It's 4.54 billion years old, you frickin' desert-wandering idiot. Not bad, huh? I'll win. Well, I mean, I have to win. Got science. Facts. Where was I? Oh yeah, Mars.
Oh boy, I'm going to get a lot of static on that one. But anyway, he apparently thinks the Earth was 4.5 billion years old. How old do you think it is? And I know people will say many different things, everywhere from 5,000 to that number. So let's just continue the debate. And remember that you got a brain on your head, hopefully, and you can figure these things out for yourself, even when people disagree. Here we go.
That's right. I remember now. Curiosity is in Greenland. I know. Sounds crazy. But I'm about to show you. So, come along.
What you are about to see is bizarre.
So there I was, just minding my own business, looking at Google Earth, and this big, snow-covered monstrosity is staring me in the face like, why is that covered in snow? I look into Ireland and some other areas around it, Iceland. Ireland gets snow only once a year, one day a year. So I keep digging a little bit deeper, and I finally get underneath this cloud cover here, and a few images pop up. And I say, oh, images, what are they? Well, this is what you got, which I'm sure that looks familiar to you, right? Looks just like the pictures they give us of Mars. So I'm just kind of creeping around here and definitely noticing the same kind of undulation changes and the same kind of rock, same kind of dirt. The only thing that's missing is that nice little red tint that they pay somebody $150,000 a year to put on there. And then I see little things there, so, well, it's not Mars because they got some weird little tires and little ATVs over there. But I was just kind of looking around, see what we could find. Another one of those ATVs, some antennas set up. But those mountains, those rocks, definitely exactly like we see on Mars. So I say, I wonder what they're doing out here. What is all this equipment for? I'm sure it can't be NASA, right? Whose orange Hummer is this? Okay, that looks like a NASA symbol. Well, let's dig a little further because I can't really see anything on here other than it certainly looks like a NASA symbol. And I can't read that. Tried. Cameras set up, tents, ATVs, food. They've been there a while. It's not a one-day trip. Got their antennas set up out in the middle of nowhere in Greenland. Another ATV, a leveler equipment. So, that was all that picture had. Let's see what this one's got. So this one here said, roving the Arctic. So what is that? Doesn't make any sense. Hop in here. See if we can find anything. Again, same kind of mountains. That looks like the same kind of water I've seen before that I thought was water on Mars. Who knows? Zoom in, what's that? Oh, nothing. Just looked like it was funny. So I'll keep kind of going through here and see if it... What the... Yeah. So, I think I found out where Mars is, guys. It's just about 1,000 miles north of me. Not quite the distance that NASA says. But I can't find anybody who's in charge of this. They must be hiding behind these rocks. Oh no, there they are out in front of everybody, just standing there. Lovely. Clown number 1, clown number 2, clown number 3. These fools. Alright, let's check out some of these other pictures. I saw another one over here. This one says Drill Hill. Alright. This one here. Totally looks like the Mars terrain to me. Just need the red filter. Let's see, can we find anything? I just see the mountains. There's the road like we saw on last Monday. I bet you these guys are just scamming us. Definitely looks like Mars terrain, though. Alright, let's head back this way. Yeah, if you go look at Mars pictures, go to Gigapan or any site that has, you can even go to NASA.gov and look at all their Mars frauds. Check out those images, they're identical to these. Yeah, it's very empty here. Oh, there's one of those ATVs. Alright, now we're on something. Oh, I got another truck. Oh yeah, it says NASA. What's that say? Mars Project?
Cheap, lying, no good, rotten, fork-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit.
Oh, thanks, Chevy. Couldn't have said it better myself. So that's what they're doing, huh? Got these scientists, I guess, up there driving ATVs, stealing everybody's money. Sending pictures back from the car-sized Rover. Oh boy. Car-sized. This thing's just driving around taking pictures. Unbelievable. Actually, if you ask me, it's quite believable. But what do you think? Are they sending scientists up on ATVs to practice on the rover in a remote island in Greenland? I doubt that, highly. But I did see something cool on the site. You could send Curiosity a postcard. So I was like, sweet! I want to send Curiosity a postcard. So step 1, you have to choose your postcard. They try to give me this funny one of like a Mars landscape. I decided to go with this one. It's kind of the same. So I said, fictitious Osity, can you see our moon from there? Strange phase, I know. So, happy I get to send this. Hopefully, this rover gets it soon. It's not very far, it's just up in Greenland. Hello, Curiosity. I hate you. You are pathetic. Your owners are pathetic, and so is your maker. I hope you explode. In case I haven't told you, by the way, you are not on Mars, and cannot ever go there. Don't worry. They haven't told us either. We had to figure it out ourselves. Oh, and Johnny 5 is way better than you? You're a poser. Love, this human. Just ship that off to 123 Clowns Way, Stupid Island, Greenland, and they'll get it right away. Just make sure you put Clowns Way, because I think if you put Clown Way, it always goes to Buzz Aldrin automatically. So, gotta add that S. Be careful of that one. Alright, I'm back. To me, it is becoming painfully obvious, but let's even look a little more deeper. So, supposedly a 23-month program.
Okay, let's cut it off there. I only have a minute to go. And you can make up your own mind whether we are faking the Mars landing like we did the moon landing. I'm convinced we are. And look at the NASA budget. Billions. Was it $95 billion last year? I don't know. I might be off. I forgot. I had the right figures maybe 6 months ago. But it's incredible how we waste this money on, photo imaging. What an expensive photo imaging group they are. My really question is this, though. You saw those people, there's got to be a lot of people involved in this. What are they told, and how much are they paid to shut up? That's what I would like to know. What are they told, and how much are they paid so they don't talk? And that would be a revealing story. So, anyway, we're all out of time today on the Investigative Journal. Go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. You can get shows going back well over a decade regarding what I call the Vatican-led New World Order. Also catch me on FirstAmendmentRadio.com every evening, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., and that's Pacific time at FirstAmendmentRadio.com. 10 seconds, they tell me. What can I do in 10 seconds? I can tell you this. Research the Vatican-led New World Order and Jesuit treachery. Back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.